All right, Ian, we talked about gaming disorder being put, being recognized universally. Now there's an update on the story here.
So, the study finds insufficient evidence of gaming as a clinical disorder. And this is something Pat and I have talked about before. And the study essentially says what we always kind of thought and talked about on here. There's no compelling evidence to warrant classifying gaming as a clinical disorder in its own right. It goes on to essentially say that, this is a symptom of a larger problem, not the problem itself. According to research conducted by Oxford University in partnership with Cardiff University, there's nothing clinically wrong with obsessive gamers. Rather than being negatively impacted by gaming itself, it's suggested that young people who engage in dysfunctional gaming may be doing so in a bid to escape underlying frustrations and wider psychosocial functioning issues. Now, this is an article posted on Video Games Chronicle, written by... I just want to give credit where I can. Tom Ivan. And that's exactly what we've been saying. There are larger problems that cause people to seek out something to escape that problem.
Yeah.
Whether and there are healthy ways of doing it and unhealthy ways of doing it, and a lot of times hobbies become it. I read for the majority of my youth to get away from other social issues I didn't want to deal with. Lots of people play games for doing it too.
Sure.
It's not the game that is literally the disorder. There's no. I don't think there's a reading disorder. Yet there are bookworms who do the exact same thing that people who play games do, but they sit in a library and they read all day.
Suggested that young people who engage in dysfunctional gaming, I like that term, dysfunctional gaming, maybe doing so in a bid to escape underlying frustrations and wider psychosocial functioning issues. It involved collecting and analyzing data from 1,000 adolescents, that's a good pool, a good sample size, and an equal number of caregivers in England, Scotland, and Wales. The adolescents completed questionnaires about their gaming behavior, while caregivers rated their child's emotional and social health. That sounds like it's a pretty good. Pretty good. Jesus Christ, I can't think of it. God, my mind's going blank. Structure for doing the study.
Sure.
Methodology. God, I did studies in college. Jeez. They found most adolescents played at least one online game daily. Less than half of daily players reported symptoms of obsessive gaming. Less than half. And daily players, typo, spend an average of 3 hours gaming each day. Professor Andrew Przybylski, Director of Research at the Oxford Internet Institute, said the World Health Organization and the American Psychiatric Association have called on researchers to investigate the clinical relevance of dysregulated video gaming among adolescents. I like that term too, dysregulated, as previous studies have failed to examine the wider context of what is going on in these young people's lives. So they're doing the work that we talked about. It's like, well, these kids might have something else going on, either at school, maybe they're getting bullied, maybe they just have anxiety in general, and gaming fulfills something for them or takes them away from it, or, or maybe they have another issue that the gaming might feed into. But like you said, in itself, the gaming itself is not forming these issues in these children and adolescents. It just isn't. It can't.
So, I mean, it's good to read that, but now hopefully focus will. I always kind of cringe when focus is way too much on video games, and there's. Everyone wants to wring their hands over video games. No one wants to wring their hands over the issues that surround the reasons why video games get into the news, such as violence and obsessive gaming and things like that. So, I don't know. I would love to see it move on to, a study that could be helpful as opposed to constantly trying to pin everything on the game itself.
So this is the key takeaway. Our findings provided no evidence suggesting an unhealthy relationship with gaming accounts for substantial emotional, peer, and behavioral problems. Instead, variations in gaming experience are much more likely to be linked to whether adolescents' basic psychological needs for competence, autonomy, and social belonging are being met, and if they are already experiencing wider functioning issues. In light of our findings, we do not believe sufficient evidence exists to warrant thinking about gaming as a clinical disorder in its own right. So if that child is playing games for 15, 20 hours a day, won't come to dinner, won't go out and function, with his friends socially, it's not because of the game, it's because there's issues before the game got there.
Right.
The game, yeah. Now, here's what I'm going to say, though. It doesn't help that the game's there, because then it becomes like a cocoon of experience where now I'm safe. I won't try to get out of this safe spot.
Yes,
but that's something for the adults to manage, though.
Yeah, and that can be, I said, that can be said about any number of other things people escape into. It's someone who sits in their room and obsessively plays their guitar all day, or reads all day, or plays games all day. None of these things are unhealthy on their own. As a matter of fact, in a lot of ways, these things are great. It's how
things become too healthy when it takes over your activities and your daily life. And
correct.
Yeah, that's what happens. And say there takes precedence over the blah, 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 blah. Okay, that's fine. Neuroscientist Nastasia Griffion, is that a letter? It's a weird letter. Recently warned of the dangers of stigmatizing people as being addicted to video games. If we do stigmatize people basically as being addicted to video games, we might take away those video games when they might be a coping mechanism for a deeper underlying problem like depression or anxiety, she said. All right, well, there you have it. I mean, it's what we basically said before. Not that me and Ian are clinical psychologists, but to me it was always, well, I took psychology, but it was always common sense that, the gaming itself, because there's also a huge variety in the gaming experience as well. So it's like, well, if this person is addicted to playing World of Warcraft, that's different than someone else being addicted to a puzzle game or whatever else. They might fulfill different functions to that person. A feeling of community versus just having a quick 5-10 minute game, or me playing poker for 10-20 minutes as an escape. It's different. You can't lump it all together either way.